Bhadram karnebhi shrnuyama devaha Bhadram pashyem akshabiryajatraha Stirairangaihi tushtuvagam sastanubhihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu Svastina indro vrdhashravaha Svastina pusha vishwavedaha Svastina starkshyo arishtanemihi Svastino brahaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Memory, this chittam, it's also divided into two parts, unconscious and conscious. Conscious is what is available to you right now. So you know details about, today what happened. The unconscious is something, it's also a memory, but it's guiding your orientations and you don't even know it. So this is usually from childhood. All of those things that we have sort of, didn't process because we didn't have the capacity to, and we had to cope with it, so we hid it under the carpet. So these orientations can guide a person's life, and they can influence how we communicate, how we operate in the world, and so on. So they too are, they make up memory, and the Gita, of course, focuses on the unconscious. It brings that out, so that talks about.
Is there a Sanskrit term for this?
No, I'm not going to say impressions. It's different. Unconscious is specifically to this life only. There's no Sanskrit word for it. This is more of a Western psychology. Okay. Yeah, but there's no unconscious in Sanskrit. We do have impressions and samskaras, but not unconscious. And then we have the ahamkara. Aham, that means I in Sanskrit, and then kara, that means I, doer. Ego is literally I in Latin. Ego want water. It has a function. So notice how it's a function. So can you eliminate the manas? No. Buddhi? No. Chittam? No. Ahamkara? No. Because they're all functions of the mind. It's funny how in the spiritual world, right? Leave all these and just eliminate the ahamkara. You can't eliminate that which is empirical. I can't eliminate ahamkara no more or less than I can eliminate the sun, because I didn't design it. So let's not get rid of ego at all. It's functional. Now, what does ego entail? We're talking about one reality, Brahman. We said it obtains as different forms. Now, when it obtains in a person, this ahamkara, what it does is it takes all the information from the chittam, right, the memory, the buddhi, and the manas. So let's go. Manas maybe takes a happy face, and then it claims I. What is I referring to? Self-shining, self-revealing, Aksharam Brahma. So it takes whatever's happening to the chittam, to the manas, the emotions, and it attributes that onto I. So now it's as though the happy face is happening to Aksharam Brahma. So now I, the all-pervasive one, am as good as a happy one, or as a sad one, or whatever. Now what about buddhi? How about buddhi is very educated? So now it claims that education onto I. So now the I, which is attributeless, remember, attributeless, full, whole, and complete, it becomes as big or small as education about PhD in whatever it is. That's why we then claim this PhD as mine. And then whatever's happening in the memory, I had such a good time. Remember those good old times when we were small? Everything was so nice. Oh, I was so happy in those moments. So now you're identifying with the memory, the chittam. Let's do a little experiment. I'm going to use a cup. You use, holding imaginary cup. It's on the table. Let's not pick it up yet. Okay. Now, the hand is going to come down. The palm is going to squeeze. The muscles are going to contract. The hand is coming up. It's going to orient itself. It's going to touch the lips. And now it's going to pour. And now drinking is going to happen. Now the water is coming down. Okay. Putting down. Okay. What was involved in this experiment? Memory. Yeah, good. How to pick up a cup. Don't know how to do it once upon a time. What else? Muscles, squeezing, lips, mouth, swallowing. All these complex things were involved. And what do we say? I am drinking. You see what happened? Not only the hand, now I is as good as the hand. In one shot, you took all these components, all these things that were going on to do this, is now claimed under I. And it's supposed to work like that, because that makes you functional in this world. But we don't think like this.
Don't do it like that. You exactly. Nice.
Yeah.
Very intelligent.
So you understand the idea how the I claims it in one shot, and yet it had nothing to do with the I. Something as simple as, I am picking up. Look at this. Now my eye is as good as the hand. I am picking up. So now the body attributes, body also got attributed onto this all-pervasive Aksharam Brahma. So that's the first. So the first we could say is it localizes all of that onto I. In other words, it has to make it so that this is happening to one individual. It has to be happening over here where my body is and not over there. Otherwise, it will be like LSD, LSD or whatever. You consume that, and then I have no sense of I. I'm now one. That may be wonderful, but we can't operate like that. So it's a perfectly functional tool to empirically work in this world.
I have a question about that. Because of this, I, since a long time, tend to refer to myself as Dacia. My name is Daisy. So Dacia picks up the cup. So to de-identify with that I am Daisy, and to more identify with that I am the consciousness that is aware of what's happening.
It depends which teacher you ask. I am up for both. I know what my teacher would say. She would say no. But I say there's nothing wrong with that, because I've done that for 2 or 3 years. Works like magic. Yeah. And then you got to go back, because people will think you're weird.
Not with other people. You're crazy.
Yeah.
No, I just do
Yeah.
it with me.
Yeah.
But why does your teacher say no? Why is that not a good idea to do it?
My teacher's been with one teacher. That's just what she says. But I've been many, many different schools, and I know this one method works. So I don't mind saying Andre is now speaking. It helps you a lot. Yeah. So whatever works.
With my friend, we sometimes address each other as my friend's name is Anne, so I call her Annic consciousness, and she calls me Shani consciousness, because we have it all the other way around, like a golden chain is Janie Gold actually, and to just make it more practical, we play this little
Good.
game,
Good.
and it's just nice to address somebody as namic consciousness and put just the name in.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got several forms. We've got name, so on, consciousness, Shan.
Consciousness.
Oh, so first name and then consciousness.
Consciousness for
Okay, so Shan,
Because that's what it actually is.
Shan consciousness. Okay, that's excellent. That's one way. Second way is, I think it's called third person, right? Refer to yourself as third person. It's a stepping stone, yeah. Eventually you get that. If your discernment is switched on, you will come out of it. It's totally unnecessary, yeah. Right? In the presence of I, this is going on. In the presence of I, Andre is speaking. The second is in reference to roles. Okay, so in reference to roles. See, all day long we play roles. Right now you're playing the role of student. Andre is playing the role of teacher. Then you will play a role of partner or couple. Then you will play a role of father. And then a silly silly father, or silly, goofy or whatever. Intelligent, having an intelligent conversation, like we did this morning, right? Okay, so we play roles. Let's not use the word we. Roles are played by this body-mind instrument all day long. Okay. So what the ahamkara does is it attributes and makes these roles as though they're played by I. That's why we always claim I am, the student, I am the teacher, I am the couple, I am the father, I am the silly one, I am the intelligent one. That's also okay. It just makes you play these different roles.
Isn't it more true to say roles are happening?
Yeah, roles are happening all day long, and then the ahamkara claims those roles, and it makes like I am that role. Yeah, but roles will never stop.
So, ahamkara, localization, roles.
Yeah,
That's the order.
yeah. Ahamkara equals localization / roles. Full stop. So I say, what should be your relationship to the ahamkara? What's a proper relationship to this thing we call ego? We know one thing for sure. It is not to be eliminated because it can't be.
Now we come to my exercise. It's called Sakshi Bhava, and it is to sit and meditate and see what happens. See what happens.
See what happens.
Just see the happening.
Okay. See the happenings.
And the seeing is the real. The seeing is the real.
Yeah.
And all what is seen is mithya, is not
Okay.
real.
Okay.
And the only relationship is that it is seen.
Okay.
For the rest, there's no relationship.
Okay. That's your method. That's wonderful. Acceptance, yeah. So it's there, right? It's fine. It's wonderful. It's operating. It's doing its job.
It's a practical relationship.
It's a practical utility to operate in this world. Yeah. Respect for it, honoring it. Yeah, honoring it. It's because it's an expression of divinity. Yeah. Excellent. Gratitude. Yeah. Thank you, individuality. Thank you, individuality. Thank God I'm not like you. I don't want to be you. You don't want to be me. So, do you want to be a teacher? No. Right? It's like you love your individuality. That love, what am I loving? It's very substance. So it's not like I'm loving ego. Ego is nothing but the substance. So it's okay to love me. You don't have to now philosophize what the me is, because there's only one reality here. So, this ahamkara produces you could call it a relationship of separation for everyone. That's the universal relationship with the ahamkara. Everyone gets born, and we have this empirically designed separation. We don't learn this. We don't learn that I'm different from you. It comes built in just like dharma. Now, what do we say? Therefore, I am refers to Akshara Brahman, I am different from you. Everyone has this experience. Now, what happens when, through life, you go with this narrative, I am different from you? who happens to be having a lot more skills and have a bigger body and a more prettier face than I, we develop complexes. Therefore, what happens onto this empirical I sense? We attribute personal notions onto empirical separateness. What does it mean to be separate? What does it mean to be different? Therefore, now we've got two issues here. We've got one, separation, and then we further separate by comparison to something else. So this is empirical. Empirical, and then we've got, what's this? Subjective, right? So you can call the subjective the snake. So we add snakes onto the rope. Subjective, which is mental complexes. They get attributed onto, the snakes get attributed onto the rope. So my question was, what is the relationship to the ahamkara? Do we get rid of this? No. What do we address? Mental complexes. So we reduce mental complexes, and then we come and say, okay, yes, there is a rope, there is an individual. Then the next question, what's the truth of this individual? And the truth is Aksharam Brahma. Because the content of the individual, the content of the ego is nothing but its substance. But you first have to reduce those subjectivities, which is 95% of Vedanta, by the way. That's why Gita is so popular, because it reduces the mental complexes.
And they sometimes refer to the guru as the burned rope. That the rope, the objective, the identification even with the objective world is gone. It's a burned rope.
It's a burnt rope, yes. So in other words, you just see the truth of the rope. Are you ever going to get rid of all mental complexes? Which is why every guru is going to have an ego. This is something that we always push away. Oh, he's got an ego, not enlightened. Erroneous thought. It's impossible to get rid of your mental complexes. As long as there's a mind which is indoctrinated for decades, conditioning, you're not going to get rid of that. So therefore, guru equals ego. How's that? How's that for negating all these notions? Oh, he's got an ego, he's not enlightened. It's like silly. So it's okay to be an individual. It's okay to have your quirks and your wonderful, flowers shining through. That's what makes you. That's what makes... Otherwise, if you get rid of so-called the subjective, everyone would be the same. And then no one will want to talk to each other because I've got nothing to share with you. You're separate, I'm separate, that's all there is to know. I want to know your problems. I want to know your mental complexes. That's what builds a relationship. That's what builds a relationship between a guru and a student, between you and your loved one. Redefining the ego, leaving it alone, like Navya said, it's a blessing. It's divine blessing to have. So we're just putting things in the right place. We're not trying to get rid of anything. Just seeing it, oh, okay, so this is where this is where the mental complexes have their place. This is where the empiricalness has its place. Yes, there is a certain reduction, but not to the point of becoming this, stoic person, right? Non-responsive. Yes, no. That's most boring.
So can I ask, yesterday you said nobody can have a pure mind.
Yeah, true.
Does that refer to the highest being also? I mean, would somebody like Paramahansanji, would he have still not a pure mind?
It's not possible to have a pure mind. Yeah, you may perceive it as such because of a different culture or because they're... Look at this, very easy. You put a person in the right environment, they will show saintliness. You take them out of that environment, you know what happens.
So, but if that's true, that means that there's some karma still going on, no?
No, it's just the mind still playing its old conditioning from childhood. That's what we call ego, mental complexes. So all I want to say is, yes, you are pure, but complete purity, there's no such thing as complete purity. The only thing that's completely pure is Shuddham consciousness. Remember that term? That which is pure? Pure. Shubhraha. Free from raga dvesha, free from personality, free from mental complexes, free from empirical separation. That's the only thing, that's the only principle that is completely pure. Otherwise, the mind, the talker, the teacher, the role, there's always going to be something mixed in. Yeah. Raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes. Yeah. You get to know the person a little bit more, you will see their things come through.
But in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 15, verse 5,
Yeah.
they accidentally studied near Manamoha. It's a whole. Doesn't that apply to the teacher regarding to her question? Isn't it possible that you are near Manamoha, Chitta, Sangha, Dosha? This whole thing that you are, which in the end makes you pure. You are there, but you think
You see,
you have prarabdha karma. There's also
as always. I know what's happening here. There's a tendency to attribute satyam onto mithya.
sorry.
That's the error.
Thank you.
So now you want the mind to be satyam. Yeah, mind is always mithya. Yeah.
You would not have been born. In the first case, if you being born is being impure.
Yeah, but you could get rid of it, but what you say, that's
No, you cannot get it.
Okay, now the next question is how do you distinguish the sahamkara, which I mean, how do you distinguish these roles from Brahman? How do you distinguish roles from self? Okay, so we said that we play different roles, right? So let's put again father, teacher, student. I mean, are you playing the student outside during break? Are you a student then? No, and I'm not a teacher outside. So you see, let's take a simple example, like a guard. I am a guard. I'm a bouncer of a nightclub. They're kind of very, responsible people. I'm a nightclub bouncer. Okay. That's me. So I equals nightclub bouncer. Okay. Now, suppose this bouncer gets drunk and totally forgets about himself as a bouncer. That should be the end of I. Because if you were as good as the bouncer, then the moment you no longer identify as that bouncer, your I would go out of existence. But it doesn't go out of existence. You are very much there, in the presence of whom the drunk mind is recognized. So whatever role we play, whether it is the father, teacher, student, bouncer, put all these roles as knower. Right now, I know I'm playing the teacher role. Right now, you know that you're playing the student role. Now later on, you know that you're playing the couple's role. Okay, so you're a knower. What else can we put? Experiencer. In other words, experiencer, this includes enjoyer and sufferer. So during the knower, right, I'm no longer knowing anything. Now I'm an experiencer. I'm not experiencing anything. Now I am just doer. We'll put karta. Knower, experiencer, doer. Can you relate to this? These three roles? Okay, so when you're on a hammock, enjoying, there's a hammock there. Which of these three are you? Enjoyer, right? Are you thinking about contemplating the secrets of life? No. So that means you're not the knower. You're enjoyer. Now the experiencer, right, the enjoyer is gone, and now someone tells you, hey, let's do some community service. And now you're a doer, right? Now I'm playing the role of a doer. I'm no longer, maybe you're a enjoyer, who knows, but you're a doer. And you stop doing and you come to class. And now again, you're a thinker. Knower is just another name for thinker. I am here. I am here. I am here. In the presence of I, there is an enjoyer. In the presence of I, there is a hard worker. In the presence of I, there's a lazy worker. In the presence of I, there is a thinker. So there is one common invariable presence, which is of the nature of consciousness, which is self-revealing. What is self-revealing when there is a in the door? What's self-revealing? I am. What's self-revealing as the experiencer? I am. What's self-revealing in the thinker? I am. But when there is a thinker, what is not revealed? What is not there? The door. When there is an experiencer, what is not there? The knower and the door. When there is a door, what is not there? The experiencer and the knower. But what is there in all three? I, which is self-revealing and self-shining. That I, self-revealing in all roles that you play, is Aksharam Brahma. Okay, a little test. Suppose you now say, I am, whatever your age is. Let's put a comment. I am 35. In a stage of not knowing this, what is the I referring to? Yeah, what is 35, right? The attributes of the body. Now, you don't have to say, this third person language and say, Andre is whatever, however old he is. You say, I am 35. Still. Is there any problems around that? No. But your I is not referring to the body, which is 35 years old. Your I is the illuminator of the body's attributes, of the memory which has memorized that the body is 35 years old.
To get something clear about the definition of sakshi, is it, the presence in whom? So it's not the function of the mind who observes.
Tanya's asking, the word sakshi has two definitions depending on the context. The first one refers to Aksharam Brahma. In another Upanishad or text, it refers to the jnata, the knower. Okay, the knower that resolves in deep sleep. So we tend to confuse this. So in this case, when I say sakshi, I'm referring to Aksharam Brahma. The sakshi that is also the witness of the deep sleep, or the absence of thoughts. That's better.
It's also called reflected consciousness. Reflected consciousness.
Yes, good. So sakshi, in the second definition, the one that resolves is chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. Okay, so let's put that down. So it changes. That's why people get confused, and sometimes we say, no, you're wrong, it's like this. No, you have to understand the both places. So sakshi, definition 1 is Brahman. Definition 2 is, we'll say, knower. You can even say ahamkara. But I'm just going to put, for those who do know, I'm just going to put chidabhasa. Okay, that's the second definition of sakshi. Verse 3 is another model of creation. So it's going to get, again, more detail. Etasmat jayate pranaha manaha sarva indriyani cha kam vayuhu jyotihi apaha prithivi vishwasya dharini. So the purpose of this verse is to show you systematically how the world of forms, when I say world, I'm including your body, and the very mind would just listen to the statement. That also includes the world. Don't exclude that. So how the world resolves into knowledge. Remember that model of knowledge when we talked about potential is knowledge and power? So it wants to show how everything resolves into knowledge, and knowledge resolves into Aksharam Brahman. A metaphor for those who still kind of want to connect with metaphors. Think of Brahman, we have many metaphors to relate to this. One is, it's like a screen. Sometimes we use this in Vedanta, a screen upon which all of the images are taking place. So whatever images are happening, whatever hits the screen of consciousness, whatever hits the screen, it doesn't affect the screen at all. And you're like that screen. So the screen is just there as the canvas upon which the script of life is taking place. That's one little kind of another metaphor to help. Now, what do we say comes after in the hierarchy? The potential. So now, Brahman's creative potential, creative power, we call it anam, food, right? Other times we call it maya. And this potential has the ability to manifest the universe. And the nature of this potential, if you remember, is knowledge and power. Why power? Because you need to move that, you need to reshuffle that knowledge, you need to sustain that knowledge into one form for a while, and you need to move that, change that knowledge into something else. That's why if you just had without any sustaining power, then things couldn't move. Now, what's the relationship between Brahman and potential? Think of a seed, a big seed. And what's inside the seed? If you crunch up the seed, nothing. But that seed definitely has what kind of a potential? A tree, a big tree. So put a tree inside a seed. And that tree is going to have a lot of intelligent creation. It's going to know how to convert sunlight into energy. And it's going to know how tall to grow, how deep the roots will go, what color of the leaves, how the leaves will be shaped, what fruits will be bared, like an apple, what vitamins will be inside the fruits, for whom or what kind of species will the tree be useful, how deep will the roots go relative to the environment that it's in. If it's very windy, then the roots will go deeper. And it also has to hold itself against wind. So everything about this potential, just for a tree, is extremely well thought through. So we'll say the potential equals well thought through. Now that's just for a tree. Now you put a world there, you put cosmos, Big Bang, supernovas, you put a person there. Okay, so now the seed, you can say, is Brahman, or awareness. And the potential is Maya, which we don't use in this Upanishad, so that's I'm going to say, do it justice by putting Anam. Another example, for those who are still wanted something more, suppose you have a projector, and what's shining out of a projector? Okay, light. So we can compare that light to like Brahman, but what modifies that light into different colors and shapes? The projector. So the modifier of the light is the potential, Maya. So in other words, it doesn't actually modify the light, it's always one light, but there is a power in awareness that as though makes awareness seem like it's being moving, like it's changing, like it's obtaining as different colors and shapes and vitamins and trees and experiences and people and intelligence and the whole Himalaya mountains and the Swiss Alps and so on. By the power of its potential. Now the verse continues and it says, from this arises prana, mind, and all senses. In other words, arises the subtle body. When I mean subtle body, I just mean your mind. Remember those 4 functions of the mind? Yeah, that equals subtle body. That's another name for... So what does this subtle body consist of? Prana. Yeah, that's definition 1. There's 2 more. Energy. So in other words, when you drink coffee, you're experiencing prana. Definition 2, think of it as the intelligence that facilitates your physiological functions, such as digestion. Yeah, so in other words, it's glue. Number 3 is glue. So what is binding your subtle body, your mind, to your physical body? Prana. The magical glue. So last breath, prana leaves, and then the subtle body, that's what we call the soul rises. But we don't use the word soul in Vedanta. We just say the jiva, the living entity, the one who believes that I am as good as my mind, that one leaves. So the subtle body leaves. So 1, energy, 2, intelligence, which facilitates digestion, circulation, so on, procreation, and 3, glue, which is right now making you wake up every single day in your body, not somebody else's body. It has senses, in other words, capacity to hear. See, you can take the physical eye out, but is your capacity to see gone? No, because if you put another eye, which they haven't done so far, but if you could, immediately you will be able to see again. So you can take the physical, we can't think of the whole golakam, the physical instruments out, but capacity to see, to hear is still intact. So from this potential arises the subtle body. What else? 5 elements. Remember how I said earlier that I'm going to explain what 5 elements is in detail? Here it comes.
Andre? In this model, is there an order to it? Like first comes prana and last comes earth? Or is it just...
We've done the order model previously. So prana would be after Hiranyagarbha.
Right, so
Yeah.
that's not the order.
Yeah, that's not... So here is...
It's just a...
well, we do have an order. We have Brahman, we have potential, and then we have subtle body, and then we have the 5 elements. Now, 5 elements, physical 5 elements, because you already have to have a mind prepared that's going to enter a world that is ready. Okay? So now comes the physical time, space, as they call Big Bang. So what comes before? What's already ready before the Big Bang? The mind. So there is a jiva waiting to enter the physical body, which has not yet been manifest. The world hasn't been manifest. The world of insects hasn't been manifest yet. You have to wait a couple of millions of years for evolution. And then the jiva enters a little amoeba. 5 elements is a model. It will show you the dependent nature of reality. That's its intention. How everything depends on everything else. It's a model. So we start with space. So space is a container for creation, container. So that means everything that is to manifest will be within space. It symbolizes openness and expansion. And then we say the attribute of space is sound. I know so far he's saying, huh? What? Okay. Can sound be present in, without having the distance to travel? No, sound can only be true if it can travel from one to the other. Now, sometimes they say, creation comes from sound. Have you heard this?
Yes.
Okay, what does this mean? Now, before I ask that, when attribute is the sound is the attribute of space. What kind of sound? Because I can go to outer space, I'm not going to hear a thing. So what sound are they talking about? Silence. Sound of silence. It's another object that is known to you, into which all sounds resolve, which facilitates and gives the chance for every other sound to take place in creation. If space had a sound, could you hear that sound? Yeah. No, if space had a sound of could you ever hear No, that means space has to be attributeless to hear or to see attributes. Now, go back to that question. Space or creation comes from space, from sound. And they say then Om. Okay. Why do they say this? If you look at sound, together I am putting words. What did I just do? They were just sounds. Sound 1, sound 2, sound 3, sound 3, 4. And what happened when I put these words? It created a sentence, and a sentence created a meaning in your brain, and that meaning meant something to you, which means that sounds are intelligently put together parts. So when they say creation comes from sound, what does sound represent? Intelligence. Air, vayu, represents movement and change. So in other words, without air, there will be no movement. It's just that it's symbol for intelligence which allows movement to take place. Now, if you can't move, could you experience touch? No. So for movement to take place, touch is possible. Therefore, the attribute of air is touch. And air depends upon space because it needs to travel from one to the other. 3, fire. Represents illumination, in other words, physical light. Energy, because heat energy. Its attribute is sight. Why? Because physical light lights up objects. Therefore, it enables sight. And fire depends on air, because you can't burn fire without air. So you see how it's showing a dependence? It doesn't matter what model you use. It just wants to show one thing in creation depends on something else. That's all it wants to show. What about water? Water, apara. For water to take place, you need to melt it, right? Therefore, water depends on fire. So water stands for cohesion. You know what cohesion is? Yeah. Could you, if I just have dust like floating around, could I ever put that dust together into some solid structure without some form of moisture or water? No. Like you go to the desert, you know, it's just all falls apart. So water represents intelligence, which puts everything together and holds it together. Thus, cohesion and liquidity and flow of life. Water depends on fire, and finally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, earth. Earth, prithvi. So once again, as I said, dust. You cannot put dust into a solid structure without cohesion, without liquidity. And what does earth represent? It represents solidity, structure. How's your dreams? Is your dream solid? Why not? Because it's lacking the element of earth. Therefore, it's all fluid. You wake up and there's this earth to give it structure and solidity. And earth, of course, depends on water. So, what did you learn from this?
Everything is dependent on the...
Okay, what about how do these 5 elements show in your physical body? Where is your physical body located right now? In space. What is inside your lungs? Air. How do you call this hotness today? Temperature. Fire. What is your blood made of? Water. And bone marrow and everything else? Earth. So it's all there. And what is the purpose of your gross? So your gross body, your physical body, according to Vedanta, there's only one purpose: to experience pain and pleasure of your past results. Because there was always a jiva living. And so you're now born. Why do you have a physical body now? To experience the pain and pleasure of whatever took place in the past. And who doesn't experience pain and pleasure? Anyone out? It's always a mixture, isn't it? Yeah. Why? Because you and I have punya papam. And that punya papam only gets exhausted by the manifestation of a physical body.
So could you say that you have a body now because you have endless internal bodies before?
Because you have a body now because of all the things you've done before, yeah. So now, what is the intelligent cause? What gave you the body that you have right now? Because look at this, if you chose your own body, would you have not decided better? Yeah. I would have loved to be taller. What about you? Huh? You would have said, you know what? Let me have a young face until 99. So the fact that we don't choose shows there's a much larger intelligence because of which we have received this body. And that intelligence, that intelligent cause of the body is your karma. We call this punya papam. See, if you were just happy like a deva, like an angel, reveling in joy, would you even pursue moksha? Or you would just enjoy yourself? You know, when you're happy, you're not thinking about philosophical matters of life. You're just enjoying that moment. So you need a certain loka. Remember those 14 lokas? Not only do you need a loka that gives you both punyam and papam, because you only start to ask questions when there is pain in life. So we need pain to start asking the question, how do I come out of it? So the intelligent cause that gave you this body is your punya papam, which belong to some other jiva, which I don't know who it is, who or what it is. Because in the West, we don't have a way to explain this. And it causes so many problems for people. So now we have to attribute the sculptor to whom? God. So in other words, now God gets anthropomorphized, and therefore he's calling the shots and we're just puppets. And that takes away one's, liberty and one's wanting to take control of their life. But we say whatever you came with, wonderful. That is your starting point. Now move forward. So it doesn't matter what you came with. Just wonderful, move forward. Same thing with the subtle body. The mind is made of also 5 elements, just subtler in their nature. If you remember your dream is nothing but 5 elements. And those 5 elements have their truth in none other than that potential, all knowledge and all power, which further depends on consciousness. And what gives you this mind? Remember, the intelligent cause of the body is your punya papam. What designed your mind? What gave you these special skills in this life? Same thing. Punya papam. So punya papam becomes the efficient cause of my body and mind, and 5 elements become the material cause of body and mind. And the 5 elements are none other than modifications of knowledge and power. And knowledge and power is none other than Brahman. Therefore, whatever closure, whatever model you use, it doesn't matter. Periodic table of elements model, 5 elements model, it all wants to show you the same thing. It resolves in knowledge and knowledge and power is not different from Brahman. Therefore, all effects have their reality in consciousness. And this consciousness is known to you how? Right now? As self-evident amness, self-evident I. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.